Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another video version of my Substack essays where I read the piece aloud to you, describe all of the images for the visually impaired and blind, describe what some of the links and sources are, and participate with a live Twitch chat. Hello, welcome, everybody. Good afternoon. I have a meeting in about 2 hours, so I wanted to time this around lunchtime for my East Coast and Midwest friends. The lighting is not too bad today. The lighting it's very gloomy outside, but I'm liking what I'm seeing. How's everybody doing? What's everybody up to this afternoon slash every other conceivable time period, depending on where you are in the world? Hello, Eternity Box, Astro Ace Space. Bromantic says, this waiting music sounds like a vague memory of a SpongeBob theme. It is actually from a video game called The Endless Forest by an indie developer called Tale of Tales. And it was this early 2000s massively multiplayer, I guess, online deer simulator where you were just a non-speaking, no audio chat deer who could just kind of prance elegantly through the forest and meet other deer controlled by other players and basically dance with them and play that beautiful, awful song, and you could send little sigils, little glowing sigils at them as well. It was very cute. There was even no a character customization. Like, you just got the deer that you got, and they looked all kinds of different fun, magical ways. Fuzzy Wuzzy says, sounds like me practicing the ocarina. I am also not good at it. Transgenders who tried to be like Link by learning the ocarina, put your paws up. I failed at that too. I'm taking singing lessons right now, as some of you already know, and a lesson that my singing instructor imparted to me this week is that I need to get more comfortable being vulnerable in holding the note. Like, I'll try to just hit the note and then retreat. If it's something that's supposed to be really drawn out and fluid and stretchy, I'm really afraid to do that. And the song we're working on right now is Sufjan Stevens' To Be Alone With You, one of my all-time favorite songs. Very emotional, tender little song. And I love the emotionality in it. And so it's going to be a real challenge to step out into letting that to be alone, hold out with you. Of course, it's higher than that. And I can sing it in Sufjan's register because he is a baritone who sings in his sad little head voice. So he's perfect for me to practice. But I have to get used to the vulnerability of being bad. And that was really hard for me when I was learning wind instruments too. I played cello, and that for some reason is not as scary. It doesn't feel as much like it's you coming out of you, like holding a note. But blowing on an ocarina and sounding like ass always made me feel terrible. So I think I got rid of my ocarina, actually. Romantic says, buying Powerball ticks. Oh, well, inshallah that you win. I hope that works. Eternity Box is having iced coffee. I'm envious. I'm gonna do this, and then I have a meeting, and then I'm gonna get iced coffee. Fuzzy Wuzzy says, I'm playing Go. Never learned to play that one. But that seems like that's a fun dual task combo, watching a live stream and playing Go. Hello, Artistic Bum. Yes, my little friends in the computer. Astro Ace Space on my lunch break. The kids have been okay at school today, so I'm taking the win. I'm an elementary paraprofessional. Well, I'm glad everybody is in decent spirits, especially at the beginning of the school year. I always notice an uptick in unmasking autism sales right around October. I've noticed. And my interpretation for that is that's just enough time back to school where some kids start struggling, and then they get assessed and find out that they're autistic, and then their family's like, oh shit, we got to pick up this book. Or maybe college students going through that experience and picking it up for themselves. So that's just my guess. Speaking of paraprofessional disability services kind of stuff. Artistic Bum said, just in time for my class break. Welcome. What you been taking? What you been classing? Hello, Waluigi Bowser. Good to see ya. Gloomy Feeder Mouse says hello from the UK. Hello. Good to see ya. Uh, you're a flute player, Fuzzy Wuzzy, so it's even funnier that I suck at ocarina. You've reminded me that before we dive into any reading, we should do what is becoming a new tradition here and something I'm working on in my voice training, and that's blowing some fucking bubbles in some water to get better at breathing and giving up air. Fuzzy Wuzzy, I don't know if you're on the Piscord, our Discord server, but we talk a lot about biohacking on there, modifying the body, modifying our bodily practices for fun and disability improvement. I don't breathe, apparently. That's something that I have learned from my voice lesson experience so far. I don't give the air up when I'm singing. So one thing that I've been assigned to do is to blow bubbles for as long as I can to like get that air moving. So let's have a little exhalation session together, just to release a little stress. So a little ASMR for you. That feels good. Oh, I love the bubble emoji. Thank you, Astro Ace Space. Let's do like one or two more just for fun. Join me at home. And it makes it so much easier to take a nice big inhale. Okay, one more, just because 3 is a nice number. Okay. Catch me on TikTok live getting sticker donations or whatever, doing that shit. Cat Hair Everywhere says, I miss my pre-T singing voice, but worth it for the talking voice. Listen, you can learn to sing again. It might feel like you've completely lost your voice, but you actually, like, you still can reach a lot of the notes that you could reach in your pre-T voice. You just need to use different vocal cords. This is one of the many things I've learned from working with a voice coach who specializes in transmasculine voices. There's the middle, the center, thicker vocal cords, which are even thicker now on T for you, and those control the low notes. And then you have your side vocal cords, which are for the higher notes. And so now everything for you, if you've been on T, your voice has just kind of mapped down where now what maybe feels natural to you, that would have been the kind of middle or like center lower vocal cords, sounds much lower. And if you wanted to hit a note that was what you used to hit with those big chords, now you would just hit them with the side chords. And so your mental map of where a note is and what part of your vocal cords you need to use to hit that note has shifted. The map is no longer accurate, but that does not mean that you can't learn to sing again, and that you can't even sing in ways that are actually pretty similar to the ways that you've sung before. You just also have a lower range. You just have to do a little bit more head voice and, again, more of those side vocal cords. I am by no means an expert in this stuff. I've been taking lessons since like April, but my instructor has done a lot of research into transmasculine voices and teaching neurodivergent people who hate being bad at things how to sing, and is very patient and has really explained as thoroughly as they can the physiology to me. And we've really just drilled scales over and over. And I still find it very hard to do the switch to like go up and then into like head voice, like in while singing. and making that smooth and not sound shitty. And I still miss the target sometimes where I think I'm singing a song in the right register and I'm an octave down from where it actually is. Because in my mind, if I want to hit that octave, this is where I go, but everything's moved downward. So I'm actually an octave lower than I should be. So that stuff happens. That stuff is normal, but you can get your voice back and you can have your vocal control just as good as you had it before testosterone. If that wasn't the case, then we would not have any like male adult singers of any quality. So like I would just say, please, like, just know that you can do that. And I need to ask my friend if they're still accepting any new clients because I've gotten a few questions from people. They live in California. We do it over Zoom. But you absolutely can sing again. I had no formal singing training. I was not good. And now I'm in the Chicago Gay Men's Chorus. So if I can do it, somebody who liked to sing prior to T absolutely can. And I'll also just impart the other thing that my singing instructor put out into the world because it is what made me reach out to her for lessons. We were working on a play together years ago, and she was just explaining to someone that anybody can sing. You know, sure, there are people who might have naturally a larger range than others, but anyone can learn how to move air in a better way that sounds better and get more control over what they're hitting and the expressiveness and the prosody. And it's just a matter of practicing the skill. And I filed that information away, and I waited like 6 years maybe since I heard her say that till I was finally at the point where I was ready to learn. And then I reached out to her and said, hey, let's do this thing. Teach me how to sing. And it's been really rewarding. So that's just my little pitch for that. Eternity Box says, what's your go-to coffee order? I always get whatever kind of dumb shit Dunkin' Donuts is putting out. So right now they have cereal milk coffee or like cereal milk lattes where basically they just, instead of using regular like milk or oat milk or something, they just use like a slightly sweetened marshmallowy milk in the coffee and decaf and iced. That's my move. And I keep like huge jugs of it. Like I'm like neurotically like collecting it for like doomsday. Like I get a large, I'll have like multiple larges in my fridge at any given time. I do make cold brew at home, but it's nice to, I have like 11,000 Dunkin' Donuts points. So I like using them and getting a little kofifi. Waluigi Bowser asks, sounds like a dumb question, but is body dysphoria the same as disliking your body? Well, there is no simple answer to that. Some people will tell you, oh, hating your body is body dysmorphia, right? Something like a person with an eating disorder not having an accurate read of what their body looks like. You know, that's body dysmorphia. But that itself is already, in my opinion, a pretty flawed way to think about it because plenty of people are eating disordered and know what their bodies look like and hate what their bodies look like because society has told them that their body looks bad, right? Like the stereotype of the body dysmorphic person in psychiatry is an anorexic person who is thin but thinks that they are fat, and that's why they're supposedly anorexic. But there are lots of anorexic fat people. There are eating disordered people of all sizes, and a lot of people who have eating disorders do know what their bodies look like, and they feel bad about it, not because they have a distorted view, but because they've bought into society's value system that says, you know, being fat is wrong, or having a body shape of a certain kind based on your gender is wrong. And this stuff is innately gendered, right? Like if you are a fat woman and your body fat is in places that is stereotyped as a more male fat pattern, then do you have, and you feel bad about it, is that internalized fat phobia? Is that body dysmorphia? Or is that gender dysphoria? You know, like it's a melange of all those things. You can't really honestly separate them, which is not very helpful when you're just trying to figure out for yourself, oh, do I hate this body part or this aspect of my appearance because of societal conditioning or because I'm transgender? There is no clear answer to that. There is no actually getting an answer to that because we are all we exist in the world. We're affected by culture and society. So there is no pure version of you that's not tainted by that influence. So I think it's usually a more useful question to ask, what feels good? Not like, do I have gender dysphoria or do I have body dysmorphia? Does this feeling I have count as dysphoria? Use the term if the term is useful for you. But I think even more useful than what am I going to label this is, what makes me feel good in my body? Is it being on hormones? Is it dressing in a particular way? Is it carrying your body in a particular way? Is it getting surgery? Is it moving your body in a way that makes you feel a little bit more capable and at peace with it, but doesn't do any damage to you? You know, there's a lot of different answers to that question. Is it pleasuring your body? You know, like, what feels good? Is paying a lot of attention to your presentation serving you? Or are you the type of person where it's better to just not think about it too much and take care of your body, listen to your body when you're in pain, yes, but don't really define yourself by your appearance? You know, I don't think there's any one answer. And I think sometimes we project what worked for us onto other people, and it's just really not that simple, in my opinion. Artistic Bum says, I'm doing a semester-long program for sterile processing. Oh, that's awesome. My school, one of our very beloved ambassador students is like the head of sterile processing for like the tri-state area, and like she's like obsessed with sterile processing. And so she has like sung the praises of sterile processing to me, and I didn't even know what it was until I met her. But very important. Fuzzy Wuzzy, I'm sorry I didn't get to your question. Where can you get the Discord link? It will appear automatically in the chat. It maybe already has. Let's see. No, it hasn't yet. I don't know if anybody here can do it. I can actually grab it real quick. It will appear from a bot thingy automatically. Give it enough time, but I'll put the Discord link in the chat as well. For anyone who wants to look at it and join it. The Discord is a place where people who regularly watch these streams hang out to talk about disability, medical self-advocacy, gender stuff. I'll pin that for a few minutes. We do crafting on there. I say we, but I don't. Because I'm not that crafty, but people have had crafting groups, book clubs, all kinds of cool stuff in the Discord. There's an NSFW channel where we talk about fetishes and kink. There's a food channel. There's a biohacking channel for those of us who are DIYing our hormones or our psychiatric care, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, check it out if you're interested. And people who are watching the VOD on YouTube, you can feel free to copy that Discord link into a web browser to join the Discord. I just don't link to it directly in the YouTube because I like there to be a slight filter to who can get in. Somebody has to kind of want to be there to find it rather than, getting brigaded and trolled. So if you're here for long enough for the link to pop up, or if you are watching the video afterward long enough to watch the link pop up, probably you actually genuinely want to be there, and not for nefarious purposes. So please feel free to join. Gloomy Field Your Mouse says, I have a really funny physiology in that I was born with a cleft palate, and my palate is still open, so I cannot control the airflow between my mouth and nose. So if I want to blow bubbles or blow up a balloon, I need to pinch my nose to cut off the airflow. That's really interesting. Welcome, Turtle 2. Oh, you just started, T. Congratulations. From all that I've heard, it takes about 2-3 years, my voice teacher said this, for the vocal changes on T to settle to whatever it's going to be. But in the meantime, between then, and of course, everyone varies based on dose and genetics and stuff like that. It's a wild ride of voice cracking and finding your new voice. But I loved it. It was one of my most sought after changes. I always loved how my voice sounded when I was sick, when it was low, when I had that like Tara Reid low voice. Hello, thank you for following Wintilda. Welcome. Very cool shit. Um, and yeah, Waluigi Bowser said, I'm asking this because I do dislike what my body looks like. That can come from so many places. As I said, it can be very culturally ingrained. It can be gender dysphoria. It really, it depends on like what the dislike is, what it sounds like in your head, and what way of understanding it works best for you. Generally, I would say if the parts of your body that you don't like are very gendered parts, that suggests gender dysphoria. Or if you have a vision of what you'd like your body to look like that is in some ways gendered or escaping from your assigned gender, that sounds pretty transgender of a feeling to me. But, I had an eating disorder that I could have just misunderstood as purely just an eating disorder, and not as also gender dysphoria. But I wanted a androgynous appearance, and so I was uncomfortable with some of the places where I had like softness, and some of that was still also influenced by societal fat phobia. And my first step in recovery was getting really acquainted with the fat liberation movement, and that was really honestly life saving to me first and foremost. And it was only for me after I'd kind of settled that aspect of it, the like fat phobia that often makes people do eating disorder things, that I could really think about, okay, it's not just that. There's also like, I just don't want tits, and that's fine. That doesn't mean I'm like fat phobic or whatever. I need to like get over it. So it's complicated. I think everybody's journey is different. Welcome, Closet the Demon. I feel like most of my transition regret comes down to fat phobia, fear of ugliness, and I'm trying to unlearn and accept myself as I am. Whew, yeah, that's a whole journey in that regard. That's, I think, it makes me think of that discourse that people often have about how transition won't turn you into a cute anime boy or it won't turn you into a cute anime girl. And a lot of that has to do with a very particular appearance that is youthful, conventionally attractive, and thin. And that is something that people's gender ideals look like because of cultural programming. But you can find so much more beyond that, and take so much inspiration from looking beyond that. I know that for me, looking at fat men's fashion really helped me learn how to feel more comfortable in my own body and how to style myself as a like faggy trans mask, um, because generally fat men's fashion is a lot more colorful and patterned and expressive and cool. There's a lot of especially black men in plus size fashion who just do really fun, flamboyant styles. And it works with the curves of the body. So, like, even being a straight sized person, um, like, especially when I was worried about having breasts and things like that, seeing men, cis men, who had breasts and were dressing or had large chests, however you want to call it, and were dressing in these male ways that were also really colorful and bright and expressive. It really helped me kind of unlearn a little bit of the like fat phobia in like, this is what you need to look like in your transition, and or you need to have a body like this to be able to wear that. Big big recommender of like fat fashion blogs in general. Like it's such an inspiration to me, especially fat black men. They like, there's so many blogs that I follow on, or used to follow on Instagram. A lot of people have kind of fallen off my feed, but huge inspo. Let's see what else people are saying. Artistic Bum says, I think it becomes dysphoria when it significantly affects your day-to-day being. Yeah, that would definitely be the like clinical definition of it. Hello, Maddie. Hi. Sorry, I'm really late. I'm really behind in catching up with the chat and seeing who's here. How you doing? Uh, Welcome. Oh, okay. Oh, you were gonna grab the Discord link. Oh, my bad. Thank you. Thank you. Um, Talking about cleft palate surgeries, um, and cleft palate scars. Very cool. I've always loved like a cleft palate scar. Like any kind of lip or mouth scar is just like really attractive to me. Not to fetishize, but that shit's cool. It's just interesting and cool. Um, Viv the Blossom says, "My feel when gender dysphoria, but you would have liked to get neither kind of puberty." I know, right? Um, that's that bilateral dysphoria thing that I've written about before and that we'll talk about a little bit more today. That there's no, you can't win for losing. Like there's no, there's only a limited number of options that the body can like activate. And they're not really letting us be on blockers forever out there. I'd be curious to know if there's anybody who's just like on blockers eternally. I know there'd be like osteoporosis concerns with regard to that, but like can that be worked around? Like is there some way to do that stuff? Will we eventually get to that point? Because I think a lot of like non-binary thing creature ones of us would probably have liked something like that. I'm being a Reddit atheist about gender. Yeah, I feel that. Uh, Getting hyped for Silk Song tomorrow. Oh, fuck yes. That's tomorrow. Okay, sweet. Merry Silk Song Eve to all that are celebrating. Uh, yeah. All right. Let's dive into the piece because I do want to make sure that I get through all of it before I have to go to this stupid work meeting, and give it plenty of time to give it room for people to discuss and share. I was really happy with the amount of positive response that this piece got. I kind of knew I could expect that because last year I wrote a very similar piece called Bilateral Dysphoria, talking about having that experience of feeling dysphoric with certain like masculine qualities and feeling dysphoric with certain like feminine qualities. I hate even calling it that, but estrogen dominant versus testosterone dominant, as well as societal expectations that go with typically either of those things. And a lot of people related to it. And this one too, I heard from a lot of people, and I was really happy to see that the people who were responding to it really cut through the whole spectrum of people about to start testosterone, who feel empowered knowing that it doesn't have to mean anything one way or the other, and you can stop if you don't like it, or you can stop and start. And even though you can't literally pick and choose exactly what effects you get, you are in control of your destiny here. And there's a lot always that you can do if there's something that you don't like about a certain effect. I heard from trans feminine people, especially like trans feminine NBs, who have felt like in a similar way that I had to round myself up to being a dude, felt they had to round themselves up to being women and presenting in conventionally feminine ways because that was the only way anyone would ever respect them under trans misogyny and everything, but how that erases some of the truth for them, or can also be dysphoric. Heard from lots of non-binary people of like all stripes, really. Some people who have like either detransitioned or I think that has a really particular connotation of like walking back in a certain way or like identifying with your assigned gender at birth again. So people who have detransitioned, who either that's like a meaningful term for them or they've just stopped hormones, certain effects have reverted, but they still have the same identity that they always had, or that they've been having. There's such a panoply of options here, and experiences, and I was just really glad that that people took what I was writing about in a spirit of like good faith, and were able to see commonalities with their own experience, even if their experience was totally different. So I really just love that. I'm so thankful that people are always so generous in how they respond to my stuff. All right, let's share the screen, and actually first, I will pop a link to the piece into the chat in case you want to read along, and I will also pin that now. Hopefully, it's been long enough to access the Discord link for many of you. So this piece is on my Substack. Let me switch to screen share here. So if you'd like to read along and you're watching the VOD, it is at drdevonprice.substack.com. All my writing is always free to read, forever, no paywall, pirate my books, etc., etc. And the piece is called Some Effects of Testosterone Give Me Dysphoria. That doesn't mean I regret it. I had to go there to get here. And I published this on Monday. Fuzzy Wuzzy says, I really enjoyed the bilateral dysphoria piece, especially the linked tree made from wood article. From my friend Jess White. Yes, I love that piece. In discussion thereof. The imperfection of language feels sort of like the fact that logic isn't self-providing. Probably a fundamental facet of the universe, but very frustrating. Oh my gosh, this is perfect timing because we're about to look at an image of a tree at the top of this piece. So I will briefly talk about my friend Jess White and the tree made out of wood. So the story goes that there is this Japanese visual artist, and I'll put a link to it later in the to the piece from my friend talking about all of this with sources. But there's this Japanese visual artist who is walking the beach one day, and he finds this beautiful dead tree that has fallen on the beach and is just desiccated and dried out. It's like a whole full tree-sized piece of driftwood lying on the beach with all of its branches, its gnarled roots, and its huge thick trunk and hollows in it laying on the beach. And it's, maybe hundreds of years old, or certainly decades old, this tree that's died and dried out on the beach. And the artist is enamored by it. He walks all around it. He documents it in photographs from every possible angle. He measures it. He wants to recreate the experience of finding this dead tree on the beach in his own art installation as much as humanly possible. So he gets really precise schematics of the tree, and he documents everything about where it's laid out, all its proportions, and then he cuts it up into all of these small pieces that are fit for transport. Because it's this massive tree. He could not possibly ever get it moved with like a truck or anything like that. So he slices it up into all of these really small cross sections, and he packs it up over the course of like months or something. And he brings it back to his gallery, and then he looks at his schematic of it, and he just has all these pieces of wood. And then he builds a tree made out of wood. And so he's trying to replicate the tree as it was in its natural state using these pieces of wood that have been cut down that are no longer the tree, but he's trying to make the tree out of wood. And my friend uses this as a metaphor for trying to construct a non-binary gender out of the little pieces of gender that come from the gender binary. Like, you can mix and match and combine and rearrange these things as much as you like. You can use terminology like girl fag, boy dyke. You can wear a skirt. You can buzz your hair. You can stand a certain way. You can talk a certain way. You can voice train. But you're still just making the tree out of wood. You're still just using what already existed to try and make a holistic thing. And so it's still going to always be a tree made out of wood. It's not really the thing anymore, but it's still made of the pieces of the thing. And Jess was using this as a metaphor for the inability for us to ever fully, truly imagine and construct a gender that is outside of the gender binary. All of the things we use are still things from the gender binary. We're still making the tree out of wood. All the language we use, even a term like non-binary, I hate that term. I really don't identify with it. I really don't like using it except for as a catch-all, like community umbrella term. Because all it says is that you're not binary. It doesn't say what you are. You're still defining yourself by that binary that you're trying so hard to escape. And so that's the tree made of wood. It's a really beautiful piece, just a really elegant metaphor that's like funny and sad. So it's in my bilateral dysphoria piece is the link to my friend Jess White's piece about the tree made out of wood. But when I'm uploading this to YouTube, I will also include a link to that piece. And if anybody has it on hand, feel free to throw it into the chat, but you don't have to. So thank you for bringing that up, Fuzzy Wuzzy. It's so good. And shout out to my homie Jess for that beautiful metaphor. Here at the top of this piece, we also have a tree. It's this beautiful, I'm trying to figure out what it is. It's either a hackberry or an American elm on the edge of the Lake Shore bike path in Chicago on the south side, just a little bit north of the 63rd Street Beach. And I saw it on a bike ride earlier this summer, and I just thought it looked really beautiful, surrounded by all of its little saplings. And so I put it in this piece with the caption "Growing, growing, growing." Oh, thank you, Maddie. Maddie just linked to the prior piece talking about very similar stuff, bilateral dysphoria. I came out as transgender in 2016 and started taking testosterone in 2018. Since then, I have known countless transmasculine people who came out later than me and started hormones years after me, but completely fucking lapped me in their masculinization within a matter of months. They approach me like trans eggs often do to those who have gone before, with admiration, passionate defenses, and lots of questions. The type of closeted trans guy I most often wind up ministering to is the overly invested ally with bruises on his knees and wrist scars covered up with candy, whose eyes shimmer while reading male-male fan fiction, but thinks there's no possibility he will be accepted as a queer man. Like I was, he is troubled and repressing something massive that claws its way violently out of him. It only takes a few conversations with a guy like me, with a gravelly voice, limp wrists, and endless stories of getting railed in bar backrooms to eke these boys out of their oversized hoodies and into themselves. After a little time, these guys tell me they've selected a name and are starting testosterone injections. Then, boom, 6 months have passed, and they have a full beard, a packer, a collection of snapbacks, a date scheduled for a bilateral double incision, and huge biceps hulking out of their polar skate coat button-up. The second they start wearing a bulldog harness and talking about wanting to arm wrestle, I know that I'm cooked. I get to thinking, damn, some men really are men. I thought we were just playing around. 7 years in, and I remain shrimpy and scraggly-chinned, wearing Victoria's Secret panties that I bought with a coupon in 2015 under my jean shorts. Here I have a mood board for trans guys who can kick my ass after like 3 months on T. We have a Monster Energy drink, guava flavor. We have one of those forearm developers squeeze things. We have the flat snapback with the trans flag on it and the word trans written in the trans flag colors across the lid. We have a pump. I'm gonna scroll past that actually so we don't get in trouble on Twitch, but that's a clitoral pump. We have a Carhartt logo. There is a stock photo of a man doing pull-ups with a pull-up bar in his house. There is the aforementioned Polar Skate Co. button-up shirt, very like skater boy style. And then you have a neoprene bulldog style harness in the trans flag colors on a mannequin chest. Oh, and Maddie has linked to the tree made out of wood. Oh my God, thank you so much, Maddie. You're like mission control over here. Even when you're not on the stream, thank you so much. So that piece is on Medium, and it's by I almost said homie of the show, but just friend in real life, Jess White. Highly recommend reading it on Medium if you're into that kind of thing. If you're into gender, if you're here and you're into gender things. Girl in the chair. What is that a reference to? It happens in a different way with my trans feminine friends too. They find a new name, get their dose, and within a year they have completely redone their wardrobe, grown out their hair, booked facial feminization surgery, gotten a boob job, gotten divorced and remarried, covered their entire bodies in beautiful tattoos, and evolved into a completely different, radiantly happy person. Oh, I know what you're saying. You're like Batgirl. You're like Batgirl in the chair, mission control. That's what you mean. Yes. Our girl in the chair, Maddie Test Device. Yes. Right, that's Batgirl, right? Who's in the wheelchair? Yes, okay. Figured it out. Thank you. Took me a second. I stand there on the sidelines, happy for my brothers and sisters, proud because they said my journey was an inspiration to them. But in less than a year, they have changed everything. And I'm still failing at growing out the buzz cut I've been trying to get rid of since 2021. Everybody seems so fast, so certain. They wear the changes on them well. Transition seems to unleash them immediately, off to play in some fertile field I can't see. I'm in the parking lot, nursing the same disposable vape I had in the Obama administration. My transition has been so plodding. There's no place I want to go. And even some of the tentative steps I have taken forward, well, they've gone too far. I have always taken my testosterone in little dribs and drabs of gel, never the turbocharged injections that make the effects really click into gear. Sometimes I've alternated days or halved my dose. During other periods, I've stopped testosterone completely, even trying to detransition once. I've changed identity labels around a ton, a fact I've frequently found embarrassing. I didn't schedule my top surgery until 2023, fully 5 years into medical transition, though I'd hated having breasts all the years I'd had them. I just couldn't be sure that I wouldn't regret it. A lifelong alexithymic depressive, my own feelings have always been quite the mystery to me. What happens inside of me is hazy, hard to pull into focus, and often so terribly inconvenient that it's better not to gaze. Growing up, nobody seemed to think my emotions were legitimate, so I learned it was best not to express them. The only thing that I know is blazing displeasure and impatience, the sensation of a feeling ignored far too long, at which point I act impulsively and in the aftermath retrofit an understanding of myself. And so, while my transition has been motivated by a clear hatred for being the cis, straight woman society expected me to be, I've never really felt satisfied with what I've chosen instead. That trans joy and gender euphoria that so many in our community talk about mostly eludes me, unless you count the creative fulfillment I get from pulling a great outfit together or the erotic, egotistical rush of being desired. Having a flat chest, though, does fucking slap. I will say that. That part is definitely gender euphoric. So there are a few things that go hard. I must admit. That are simply like, fuck yes, I get to have a body like this. I get to continue living like this. I can't believe I lived any other way. Like, so, you know, we got to give it to bilateral mastectomy because that they went off with that shit. I have changed myself so slowly. Only this year did I start getting my first real beard hairs, pausing after each noticeable shift to see how it lands inside my head. But it's been bad enough now that I must admit it. I've grown more and more uncomfortable with the masculinity that I see in me. I do not want the effects of testosterone to progress for me anymore. First, there's the fucking posturing of manhood. The hands shoved into my pockets, my jaw set so I look tougher, my gaze locked so I don't make the wrong kind of eye contact with the wrong person and get yelled at, the big shirts that make me look broader and weigh me down, the defensive art of calling unfamiliar guys man so they don't feel on edge, the tucking my elbows into my body so I don't accidentally intrude against a woman in a crowd, and the stiffness so that doesn't make me look weak. The jostling of my body as people push past because I have failed at the performance. For all that I've denied myself and tried to emulate strength, I remain small and easily bulldozed. I hate the self-conscious rigidity of all of it. It's not me. In public, I only know discomfort and limitation. Being a woman was a ton of that, but being a man has been too much of it too. If it were only the social baggage of cishet masculinity that bothered me, then maybe I could set myself free. I could allow myself to be swaying and funny no matter who stared, and memorize enough catty quips to disarm anyone who wanted to hate crime me. Queer beings have attached barbs to our petals for centuries. But it's not just the cultural projections that come with being a man that have got me down. I'll talk about this portion real quick though. Like I really hate how much this stuff really got into my head. Like I what like especially when I was most concerned with passing, like a couple of years ago, like because I was finally passing for the first time and like realized it was going to be possible. I like I just got so fixated on it and so self-conscious around other people, and like it feels like, or it felt like for a really long time for me, that it was like this psychological weakness that like for some reason I just couldn't just let myself be myself, and that I had to think about how I was being perceived as a man. And like, why did I care so much about that? Why did I care about lining up with masculine expectations and people seeing that I didn't and thinking that I was some kind of like little weird freak? Like, why did I care about that when I had like never lined up with like feminine gender expectations as a woman either? And I knew that like if I was going to be a man, the kind of man that I was like a queer man. But like I couldn't let myself even be as flamboyant as like naturally I like was in whatever ways. Like, and it's frankly, it's not in the glamorous sense of flamboyant. It's in the fucking weird autistic way. So maybe that's a factor there. But like, I hated how much that shit got under my damn skin, and that I was doing it. That I was like really like locking myself up when I was around people, including maybe even especially in like queer male spaces. Like, why was I buying into that like hyper masculine posturing thing? And I would like see these like younger gay dudes or even just straight dudes who like weren't as self-conscious about that shit. Like the Zoomers who were like wearing pearls, you know, and like we have all the little like rentable scooters here, and like the boys are always like, I'll always see two boys on a scooter, like two high school boys, like probably straight, and like one has his hands around his homie's waist and they're like riding the scooter together. Or like he'll even be like fully like his whole body is like against his homie's body, and they're not self-conscious about it, you know. Like this fresh new generation of young men, at least that I see in my social circles and like in the city, like they don't worry as much about like being seen as gay. Like there's certainly that rigid masculine posturing out there, and like I know all of the data shows that Zoomers are like, if anything, increasingly conservative and gender regressive, but like there are signs of progress, right? Like there are people who have come after my generation who have taken things so much farther than my generation has, and are so much freer with their self-expression and not worried about being seen as like weak and effeminate, whether they're gay or straight. And but also there's plenty of queer men of all ages who are just comfortable letting themselves be that way. And so like I would really get down on myself for the fact that like I just couldn't get there. Like I was so self-conscious. And I think now, taking a step back from some of it, I'm realizing that it's like it makes sense to understand that as a gender dysphoric reaction, because there's a lot of people who have that experience of like, why can't you just feel comfortable being a feminine man, right? Like sometimes being a feminine man isn't quite what it is, right? Like some people, that's not what they are. And I think of like a lot of trans feminine people I know who when they were in the closet, they were living as an incredibly like withdrawn, unexpressive, quote unquote man. They weren't the feminine man that like these TERFs are like, just let yourself be a feminine man. They weren't letting themselves be anything because they were fucking dysphoric. And then through transitioning, they got more comfortable being more feminine, more loud and boisterous, like whatever they are, you know, everything, both feminine and just like expressive and like alive. Like when people are in a state of dysphoria, they're very repressed. And the same thing was true for me too, in a different way, when I was a dysphoric, closeted person who hadn't come out as any kind of trans yet. Like I was not fully expressing myself either. I was very withdrawn and trying to disappear as a cis woman, ostensibly too. So like that discomfort is just there. Like when the identity is not quite what you are or what you're aspiring to, just isn't quite right. Like you can't just get over that hill and say, oh, I'm going to not care what people think. I'm going to just be expressive and wear what I want to wear and move how I want to move. And who cares if people gender me correctly or not? Like, it doesn't work that way. If the identity is dysphoric, then the identity is dysphoric. So that's like a way that I've been thinking about it lately. Maddie said, difference between the average and the height of the peaks. Are we talking like statistical language, or are we talking like trans? No, I don't. I assume that's what you're talking about is like the average man at like the middle of the like bell curve or whatever that like doesn't actually exist versus, right? Is that what we're metaphorically talking about? Closet Demon says, oh, I never got into that masculine, insecure mask shit. But when I was in the closet, I was so bad. Toxic mask girl. That, yes, I was always toxically masculine, including as a girl. Like, I was and I still am working on this. Like, I had to be tough. I had to not feel pain. I had to not be scared by things. I had to, like, not be emotive. And I was always calling people bitches and shit like that. Like, I was so misogynistic. Like, I was not a feminist as a woman at all. Like, becoming a man made me way more of a feminist. And once I started thinking of, like, myself as potentially trans and potentially, like, a queer dude, I got more weak. I got more expressive. I did get more sensitive. So it did really help. But then I went like, that was like when the door first opened and I was thinking like, oh, I can be something other than like a cis woman, which I hate. But then like once I started like passing, unironically, like unexpectedly a bad time, like because I had this taste of like, oh, this is like the goal, right? Like you're supposed to do this thing, right? So now I can't do anything that would screw it up. And so it became like, oh, if I wear a beanie, for some reason it makes my head look more round and people call me ma'am. So I can't wear a hat. I can't wear a scarf. I can't wear like certain jewelry. Like I have to get the proportions of my clothing right. Like all this, this shit, like it sucks. It's disgusting. And also absorbing some of the worship of masculinity that is so endemic to queer male spaces, and how if you aren't that certain masculine ideal physically, they just treat you like you're invisible. And like, why did I care about being accepted by those dudes? Like, it was stupid. Like, that itself was also, I think, kind of sexist to like prioritize their viewpoints versus all of the little weird trans disabled freaky crazy people that are my actual people, who like all of us are hard to read and don't fit in anywhere. Like, why didn't I put more stock in their opinion rather than acceptance in those communities? But you know, it just gets in your head, like, ugh. And it's very dysphoric. Maddie said, absolutely, the average of homophobia versus like the peaks of people being less concerned with being seen as gay. Yeah. Like, I think, well, it kind of goes back to some of that study data that we looked at in a stream months ago. People are more transphobic now and less homophobic. We see that especially among younger people. I in that one study that I wrote about on my Substack, young people in particular were found to be more transphobic and less homophobic as a result of like transphobic hate movements. So those things really have separated, where like there are young men today who are not afraid to be seen as gay. They might even see co-opting some of the aesthetics of queerness as useful for them. And they appropriate that and they don't mind being seen as gay. But like at the same time, there's this harsh divide over like the gender binary that is happening generationally. And we see that with the like, I'm just a girl, you know, girl math, misogyny, trad wife stuff, Joe Rogan bro shit, like all of that. Yeah, I think that's totally on the mark, Addie. I'm glad you reminded me of that. Actually, M says, I made a Twitch to listen to you talk about this while I work because you've basically written out my experiences as an NB non-passing trans person. it all feels like a performance for me. So trying feels pointless either way. Yeah, that's kind of eventually where I've ended up. And I had to like, for me, like I had to have like thesis, antithesis, synthesis. I had to try, okay, being a woman sucks, being a man sucks. I don't care. You know, like I've tried to be everything. I've tried being non-binary. I've tried being a man. I've tried being passing. I've tried like all this shit. Um, like I had to try all of it and fail at all of it to be like, okay, I really don't care what the fuck people call me at this point. Like I'm tired of thinking about this shit. Like I'm gonna just do me and not belong to any of these things. Like I have to set myself free of that. DJ on Dion says, and it's a throwback to the gender ternary and the subaltern, because refusing to meet the expectations of how a man should be doesn't necessarily mean you'll be seen as an effeminate man. You have to be a man to be a feminine man. So sometimes it means you'll be seen as something else. Right. Yeah, and that's what fagotization is, right? Like there's a very limited window of effeminacy allowed in men, where they can still hold on to the identity, the social identity, and the privileges of manhood. After which, passing that threshold, they're like dehumanized and fagotized. And it gets more complicated when I think when you're talking about transmasculine transition and how you might instead then just be seen as some kind of cis woman, and then maybe actually you'll be even safer because like fucking around with presentation as a cis woman is like allowed, or you might be seen as trans femme, and then obviously there's a lot that comes with that. So it's but yes, it's gender ternary all over again. Hello, Chicago. Welcome. How's it going? Good to see you. Let's dive back into the piece. Some of the effects of tea really do make me dysphoric, too. They just do. Though for years I have tried to deny it and work around it because I thought it made me less legitimate, because I didn't want to speak a word of it in a world that catastrophizes transition regret so viciously and uses fear of regret as a reason to deny our autonomy. Some of the effects of testosterone have made me alien to myself, just as some of the effects of estrogen had. So here, content warning as we get into talking about body and appearance stuff for a few paragraphs. So you may or may not enjoy hearing that, if any of it tweaks any stuff for you. But we'll be out of the woods in a few minutes. I didn't like how muscular my physique had gotten on T, even though I chose to lift weights every morning for years to look the way I did. When I was starting out, I desperately didn't want to be seen as a woman, and expanding the width of my shoulders and the size of my arms helped with that. Working out became a compulsive way to discipline my body and to offload my anxieties about aging and disability. I spent years sculpting my body into a masculine V shape, but when I caught sight of that body in the mirror, I felt the way I did when I saw other muscular men. Like I was looking at a beige leather chair. It might be an attractive luxury to some, but it was not appealing to me. Though I was devoting myself to its maintenance constantly, I couldn't see why it was worth putting in so much work. Here we have a photo of a leather easy chair, and underneath the caption is, "Behold a man." And it's in kind of like a shiny, kind of like cognac color. And this is just asexual things. I'll be in the gay club and like there'll be all these dudes again in the fucking bulldog harnesses, which I just have never found personally attractive, by the way. It just is not. I know it's because it's useful to hold on to, but like it doesn't like play up anything fun to me. I don't know. But I like a little softness in my men anyway, so, But like you see all these dudes, all these like circuit gays and these like muscular dudes, and it's like, that's cool and all, but like this is just an object to me. This is not like erotically charged for me. So that's just asexual things as well. And I think that figures in, like what you find attractive or your capacity to find things attractive. I think it also influences your gender perceptions of yourself, potentially. I didn't like the way testosterone widened my face around the eyes and forehead. Over time, the hormone had morphed the upper half of my head from slight and bug-like to square and meaty, and it jarred me and felt simply wrong each time I saw it. It was not attractive to me, especially not with my closely shaved hair, which I was also constantly maintaining for like passing dysphoria and growing out hair is hard reasons. T also obliterated my facial fat, making me look hollower in the cheeks than I already had, and even more severe. All my life I had struggled with being seen as tired and angry, but on T, I felt that I seemed inescapably dour. This face shape thing is an effect of hormones that I don't think anybody really has a perfect working theory for yet, but there is facial fat distribution, but there seems to also be facial fluid distribution that happens on hormones that can make your head and face look a lot like wider and broader on testosterone and like more narrow and slight on estrogen, around the eyes in particular. And that's just definitely something that I've noticed a lot, is one of the fastest changes that I notice in myself, whether I'm on or off, like that shift. But, dysphoria is a bitch, and so it's got you in the bathroom with the calipers looking at like your eye shape, and like it's not great to be obsessing about that shit. I recognize. I didn't enjoy the vaginal atrophy from testosterone. This is going to get a little bit graphic. The internal cramping was painful and unsettling, and I could never predict when standing up would randomly make a loogie of slime-like blood spit out of me. And it would always end up on the back of my pants. It fucking sucked. Sometimes a sex partner's dick would pop right out of me from the pressure of my tightness, or my involuntary clenching would cut off the circulation to their fingers. Earlier this summer, my vagina ripped off the rounded rubber head of a massage gun and got it trapped inside of me. This is not bragging. It had to be pulled out with a wrench. The guy who had put the massage gun inside of me was a former EMT, and he said, "Oh, it's no big deal. Worst case scenario, we would need to go to the emergency room." And I said, "I'm trying to not have that happen, man." It was a nightmare. It was so fucking scary. So, sex toy tips: always use something that has a base for anal play, but honestly, you should use something that has a base for vaginal play too. Don't put a massage gun head in your hole, because that shit slides off the massage gun. He swore it had never happened before with his, nubile 18-year-old T-boy boyfriend. But it happened with me, so don't be like me. Don't say no big deal to someone in crisis when you put them in the crisis. Like when you're doming the person and they're tied up and blindfolded and you put them in the crisis. Like, do not say it's not a big deal. Fuck that guy. Oh, that sucked. Oh, we're out here. Though atrophy is relatively easy to treat by applying estradiol cream to the vagina, or by getting regularly stretched out by a large toy or dick, which is why I was putting the massage gun in me, it turned once effortless sex into an uncomfortable hassle. I grew tired of all the deep breathing and blaming myself for being unable to relax. I worried that partners would be scared off by the unpredictable bear trap in between my legs. And so I stopped being able to let go and enjoy penetrative sex. Here is a transparent picture of a bear trap, and the caption says, "Some days atrophy is like this." Closet Demon says, regarding to face distribution stuff, "That's the one boon of fatness that I've always loved. Never got any kind of facial masculinization because I'm just squishy." I mean, like, let's give it up for fat people, if I may. Like, as much as I'm talking about like very vain stuff like facial aging, and like it's rooted in ageism and a lot of like pernicious social forces to even give a shit about this stuff. Unfortunately, I do care somewhat. And like when you have facial fat, like aging is just not as much of a like thing. Like Like fat people got it on lock with like it's just so fucked up that that society fear mongers about fatness and says that fat people are not beautiful and attractive because like fat faces are so beautiful and like they also like age really well. Like there's just like there's a lot to love about having squishiness, and like let's talk about that. Thank you for bringing that up. Tough Tooth says, I have lost vibrators inside of me before. It is scary and so uncomfortable. Yeah. I know like those old like vibrators that were just like had the double A batteries in them and they unscrewed at the bottom were like a thing, and they had no base really other than the screw off battery part that was like also the vibration speed. Like that, even that shit, don't play with that. Don't play around with that shit. That shit's dangerous. Like you can get that shit stuck in you. You can suck that shit up in a second, especially if you got atrophy that like makes you tight. So yeah, I really implore everyone to only use insertion toys with the base. Get the dildo with the balls. Like you heard it here first. Because that shit was scary as fuck. Like, oh. Mask for Mask says, same, I'm realizing I don't know if or how my face has changed. I just realized I've been on T for just over a year. Yeah, it's more visible, I think, depending on your body size and like your facial fat percentage, if we want to say. But it's also really personal, like what your face looks like, what your head looks like. You know, some people, and your genetics, like some people changes are really overt. Some people it's really subtle. And that's just the magic of transition. You really never know what dice roll you're going to get. DJ on Dion says, I gotta go, but thank you so much for this article. I've been struggling to put into words the dysphoria I felt since transitioning, and it's great to know it's not just me, especially the professional man bit. I'm looking forward to listening to that section later on YouTube. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for your responses, DJ on Dion. I really, really appreciate it, and I'm glad that I'm not alone and that talking about this stuff is welcome rather than people taking it as in any way shaming or being negative about a transmasculine appearance. Like there are so many people who get these exact effects and are so fucking jazzed about it, or maybe they were worried about getting some of these effects but then they like them. Maybe not atrophy, though I do know someone who actually likes that their vagina basically kind of sealed up from atrophy. I do know someone who found that kind of affirming. So like every person's experience of it is different, and none of it's a knock on people who do have these effects and like them. For me to be like, they just didn't, you know, some of them just didn't land for me. I didn't like male orgasms or the male sexual response cycle that T had given me, though I do find it miraculous that hormones can change sexual response so much. Before testosterone, I used to masturbate lazily for hours almost every morning. One easy, dreamy orgasm rolling into the next until my fingers pruned. After several years on testosterone, all I had were stiff, frustrating little spurt-like orgasms, which took half an hour of intense stimulation to bring out, and often made me disinterested in sex afterward. So that refractory period element to sex and like needing it to be this very like kind of goal-directed activity rather than like this non-linear thing where like an orgasm doesn't ruin it. An orgasm is just like one fun little wave on the boat, you know? Like that change kind of over time came to suck. I can understand now why some cis men fetishize edging and the elaborate chase of sex and offload so much attention onto their partners' bodies and orgasms in a way that remains resolutely self-centered. Coming as a dude is barely any fun. The pursuit becomes more interesting than the act itself. But I wanted to be able to lay back and enjoy it. I missed when the sex itself was a long, elegant dance. And this is just something that I've just really noticed about cis men sexualities in general. Like, I know I talk about this a lot, and to some people who've had really shitty, like, cis male partners, it's not, like, anything they recognize, but like I've just met so many dudes who are like, oh, I'm the orgasm king, you know, I'm gonna eat your pussy from the back for 2 hours, and like I need to make you come 20 times before I come, or you know, like I'm not gonna feel comfortable finishing or whatever. And like they say that they're centering your pleasure, right? But they say they're going to do that shit regardless of whether you want it. And it's all about their sexual prowess and what a giving partner they are, and maybe how much they get off on watching you like orgasm and things like that. So it's still ultimately really selfish, presented as being very giving. And I think it is this like fetishization that forms around the orgasm as this thing that like they don't experience in that way, you know? That because for most people on like a testosterone dominant like orgasm cycle, it's like you just like work towards it and then it just kind of like releases and it doesn't even like last that long or feel that good. Like you might be trying to get that nut off, and that might be kind of the final goal for like most like cis men, especially most cis het men, but like they want to make it a whole elaborate thing where they're offloading a lot of attention onto their partner's orgasms or pleasure or stretching their partner out or something, because it's like they got to make it like worth it, because otherwise it's like not interesting to them. And I think that's where it comes from, like having experienced this kind of sexual response cycle. Like it's a way to get more sex out of sex, when like testosterone nutting just kind of, for me, it just kind of sucked. I don't know, it's just fetishization of the idea of their own altruism, right? Yeah, they want to feel good at sex, and that means you need to give your partner like 10,000 orgasms. So much so that like, and this used to really make me sad, I had this friend who was dating a guy like that, who was like, you need to come 10 times, baby. I'm not going to finish until you come 10 times. And she told me once, and it was so sad, she was like, I basically had to learn how to just mentally induce an orgasm, because he wasn't going to get me to come that many times. He wasn't that good, and I just wanted it to stop. Like, I wanted to not be fucked for like 2 hours. Like, I was getting tired. And so like she would just like make herself orgasm all these times, like mentally, just to like placate his own need to feel like he was a good lover, which is like really gross shit to have to endure. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of dudes like that out there. There's lovely people who are genuinely giving, and or they're just really turned on by another person's arousal, which is fine. That's fine. Just be open about that. You know, don't act like you're doing me a favor when I didn't even want that, you know. 2 hours is good, but not with my pleasure centered. Like that, no. Anyway. I didn't like what tea did to my skin. How it dulled the surface, dug in the lines, and made my already perpetually tired face far more weary and serious than it had been. I sure liked popping the acne that grew so generously on my back, my upper arms, and the underside of my chin, thanks to the steroid, but I didn't like the reptilian scabs and deep blackhead scars it left behind. All over my body, my skin grew thicker, more hide-like, and rough to the touch. I missed the bounce of collagen, and, can I be allowed my vanity, how youthful it had made me. I enjoyed the feel of my softness beneath my fingers, and the sensuality of lingering in it. Again, not beating the Peter Pan syndrome allegations. I didn't like the men I looked like. When well-meaning allies compared me to various male celebrities, or like their blorbos on Tumblr, I felt insulted and grossed out rather than affirmed. I could never see the appeal in what other people saw in me, whether it was a Calvin Klein model from the 90s or a stodgy old British comedian. I could see my face as a pile of chopped apart pieces, the ears that jutted outwards, the prominent eye bags, the hair that stuck up in the back like Barry Keoghan in Saltburn. Though he does remain baby girl and trans mask representation forever. Evil trans mask, evil gay trans mask representation forever. I tried finding the compliment, tried squinting at my image until it cohered, but even when someone said I was similar to a man I viewed as attractive, it felt all itchy and incorrect. I had never felt that way before transition, when the celebrity lookalikes people most often brought up were Lily Sobieski and Lady Gaga. I had always been flattered then. Though I wasn't a woman, I was not offended by possessing some form of beauty. If you've followed me on Tumblr for a significant amount of time, you've probably seen me like freak out at people telling me like, "Oh, you look like this one guy, this one British comedian, or this one dude, this one actor," like, and like I would repeatedly kind of be like irked by it and tell people like, don't tell trans people what they look like. Like it's we look like ourselves. Don't try and like give us a compliment by likening us to a cis person that we look like, which I think is good advice in general. I got that from a friend of mine named Nicola, a trans woman who like she used to get that a lot. Like she was likened to like, oh, you're Betty Draper, you're this, you're that, and she was like, no, I'm myself. Like stop trying to validate me by saying I look like some cis woman. I look like myself, and I think that's generally good advice. And I think a lot of times when well-meaning allies do the like you look just like this person thing, it's like not great. But it just made me, when it was men, it like every time I was like, oh, like I never liked it. Like I never liked the men that I was compared to. Like it's, I don't know what it is. I think it is like a dysphoric reaction of like, that's not how I see me. Even though you're picking up on like a man who looks like this type of man, and that's like could be correct. Like it's just not how I see me. Like it's just doesn't feel right. So that's on dysphoria. Mask for Mask says my acne is my number one hated side effect, but it's not as bad as it was when I first started. Yeah, it needs some years. You said you're 1 year on T. My experience was back really bad for a year. Then it moved to a different part of the back for like another year, and then it moved to the arms for another year, and then it moved to the face, and then it kind of mellowed out earlier this year before I stopped. I don't know if that's other people's experience, but mine, it was like there was always one blast zone that was like, fuck you. And I think it coincides with like where hair was growing. Like as soon as I was starting to get more like thicker beard hair, I was getting more acne up here. So that's a big part of it, I believe. But yeah, it goes in phases. And I was on T-gel, so I had a more consistent dose rather than the peaks and valleys of like having a shot day, which I believe causes way more hormonal acne for a lot of people. Like if you have a cycle, basically, you're more likely to have acne, including like a cycle from testosterone shots. But it does mellow out over time. Mask for Mask also says, I was afraid to go on T because someone said I'd look like a fatter Shane Gillis. Like, yeah, like people need to not, like, even if you're also trans, even if you think you're doing something, just don't tell somebody you're going to look like this person. You look like this person. Like, unless you really know the person well enough that they're going to think it's a compliment, you don't know, like, what part of their presentation they're self-conscious about. So even if you're saying, like, oh, you look like this man with, like, really feminine hips or something like that, like, then they're going to be like, oh, so you mean my hips are feminine, and feel dysphoric. Or, like, in my case, like, oh, you look like this man with certain, like, very, like, severe masculine facial features. Like, no, that's the thing I'm self-conscious about. Like, don't do it. Don't say it. You never know. It's really not helpful. Like, don't define trans people by their proximity to cis people. Like, because that's not what half of us are even fucking aspiring for. Like, don't. It's just not good. It's just not fun. Viv the Blossom says, being around people who find fat qualities attractive really makes me feel in my right place, becoming more like my mother, an unassuming chubby woman who you remember for her eccentricities. Oh, she sounds adorable. I love, like, that sounds lovely. Yes, and that is a wonderful, attractive, adorable in the sense of attractive, not in the undermining way. Like, I find cuteness very attractive. Like, just a great type of person to be. Eccentric, chubby person. We need more of those on the world, on the earth. Night Owl says, thank you for talking about facial changes and psychological effects. I'm non-binary, leaning trans masc, and was put on Spiro 7 years ago for unrelated medical reasons. And the feminization has been distressing, including facial changes. At the time, no one in the medical community considered this consequence or informed me of it. I don't recognize myself anymore, and it's distressing. The differences are so obvious to me when I look at old photos of myself. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, Night Owl. there's so, I mean, medicine fails to tell people about side effects generally, but especially when it comes to anything gender affirming, or in this case, potentially gender uh, disconcerting. So I don't know if you have considered going on testosterone or if you've been on it, but um, that can definitely help kind of countervail. Or maybe you're saying you were on testosterone, but then you started Spiro and it negated some of those effects. But it sucks, and like that's a legitimate thing to have dysphoria over. Like the face is such a huge part of how we perceive ourselves, and others decide how to affect us, like how to treat us. Like it's one of the things that affects how we move through the world the most, way more actually than a lot to do with the body, other than like height and like body size. Um, like, you know, caring about how your face looks is important, and like there's really subtle changes sometimes that can really have a collective effect on how you perceive yourself. And it's just like where fluid is, where fat is, even things like where eyebrow thickness, but like where eyebrows are. Some of you maybe know Gottmik, the trans mask drag queen. He got Cade, his boy self, got Botox to push his eyebrows down a little bit, like a little bit more like flat like this, because that just reads as more stereotypically masculine in people's minds than having like a higher arch to the eyebrow. So he like invented Botox in the eyebrows as like gender affirming care. Another one that's like crazy to me, I learned this from watching Steph Senyati's facial feminization videos. A big determinant, a big subtle determinant of how people perceive gender in people's faces is the length of the Cupid's bow. So, what is it? A longer Cupid's bow is stereotypically in people's minds viewed as more masculine, and so a part of facial feminization surgery for some people is shortening it. And like there's just like all these little things in the face that affect how you're influenced, and like the face is such a personal thing, and it's also always changing over time, and as we lose weight, gain weight, and age. And so like it's a real fucking minefield, and it's so shaped by like white Eurocentric beauty standards, like white supremacist standards, like these ideas that like you need to have a dainty Cupid's bow to be a woman. That is a white supremacist idea, right? Like, but it affects people, and it creates our beauty standards, and like really affects how people are perceived and treated and how they feel about themselves. And so it's fucking tough. Um, it's fucked up. Gloomy field mouse, feeder mouse echoes male orgasms being so anticlimactic. Closet demons talking about not wanting to be likened to your mom. Piss Hospital, I love that name. My God, lip lift. I swear to God, nothing has given me more sources of facial dysphoria than my FFS consult. Yeah, that's like the fucked up thing about this stuff. Like, again, it turns you into this like, not you, but like it turns one into like this caliper holding like fucking like white supremacist like beauty standard like upholder. Like, and it's really hard to talk about because like I would never want to criticize anyone, especially any trans feminine person, any trans woman, for getting the work done that makes her feel better in herself, that makes her safer, like for any reason. Like there's any reason, including if you've internalized some fucked up societal stuff, like it's not your job to overcome that, you know, as one single person. Like I write about this in Unlearning Shame. Like it's not your insecurity is not this political project that you need to like purge yourself of, right? Like, so I never want to seem like I'm saying people getting those surgeries is reaffirming sexist or racist beauty standards. I think people do what they need to do to feel okay in a world that has infected them with this shit. And at the same time, most of the time, if you're getting that kind of stuff done, you're going into a plastic surgeon's office who is fat phobic as shit, who is white supremacist as shit, who is upholding those standards, and they're going to tell you, oh, you need this thing. You need this thing shaved. You need this thing made smaller. You need this thing made more dainty. You need to look more like a European woman, a European cis white woman, and anything that doesn't meet that is not feminine. And like it can make people feel worse about themselves. So like I don't know how one even begins to decide how to navigate that minefield of like what is going to empower me to feel better about myself versus what is going to just give me a bunch of new weird made up eugenicist shit to worry about. But yeah, it's fucked. It's tough. And I think it's a tricky thing about managing dysphoria where it's like you have to take the pain seriously, but then also you can't be in it forever. You can't be fixating on it forever. And that doesn't mean you don't address it, but like both those things are true, you know? It's just, it's tough. And I think it's a dialectic, right? It's a combination of both. Listen to your pain, take it seriously, do something about it, and also like also find ways to accept yourself, but not in the like corrective therapy. If you have enough body confidence, you won't need to transition way. It's like, no, transition however you want, but like don't let people feel like you're not adequate because of all this fucked up shit. Night Owl says, that's amazing. Yeah, I am trying to find a way off the spiral, but also been considering tea for over a year, but I have medical stuff going on. It's helpful to feel validated in the dysphoria, even if I can't change it. I'm glad. Unknown user, or unknown NB user says, yeah, if you look at trans mask subreddits, they are all, you have to be okay with being a bald, hairy, beer-bellied, middle-aged dad, and if you're not, you're just a Fuji. Feels like if you don't want an extreme cishet character, people are very rude. I think, you know, there's layers to this, right? I think it is true that like when you transition, and I've written about this a lot, like when you do a transmasculine transition, like if you think having body hair is disgusting, why is that? If you think balding is disgusting, why is that? If you think, if you're afraid of certain effects that basically are tantamount to aging, how are you going to make your peace with the fact that you are going to age one way or the other, right? Like those are good things to talk about. But I think also sometimes people assume that if you have any non-binary feelings that you must just be like wanting to look like an androgynous, thin, pale anime character and that you're not serious. And that's not true. You know, like non-binary dysphoria is real. I think if there's one thing that we can walk away from this conversation affirming is that non-binary people do experience dysphoria, and sometimes there is no easy answer to it. And I think all trans people can wind up in a position where we're still not fully happy with our bodies. We still deserve body autonomy. We still deserve to keep trying to navigate it as best we can. And also we need to be able to talk about having complicated feelings about our appearances and bodies and how we move through the world. Both to question where that stuff comes from and the prejudices that are like pernicious that make us think that way about ourselves. But like also, you know, sometimes something just sucks and is hard and you can't like get over it. And like, that's just, you know, is how it is. And yeah, stay off Reddit. Basically don't be on Reddit. They are so toxic. They are so gross. They like freak out if their nipple is like too close together, too far apart, like a millimeter too high, based on what, you know, like if they don't get a nipple, like if a nipple dies and they can't have a nipple, like, oh no, I'm never going to pass as a cis man. I'm dead. I should kill myself. Like they're so dramatic in their self-loathing on the fucking transition subreddits. It's so toxic. It's not healthy. It gives you brain worms so bad. Like it makes you hate yourself. It's not good. Okay, continuing on with the piece. I didn't like the changes in how people treated me, though of course I had pined for those changes when I first started T. Back when I was viewed as a woman, most people were naturally quite sexist and did not respect my boundaries. People of all genders inserted themselves into my space, commented on my looks and body, and chatted me up, which at the time was bothersome, but it gave me plenty of opportunities to either turn them down or deign to give them my attention. I had not realized it at the time, but my combination of feminine looks and standoffish coldness are kind of the perfect build for a shy autistic person who doesn't know how to start a conversation, but wants to feel desired and covertly in control. When I became a man, though, people began respecting my space when I seemed socially anxious and uncomfortable. This proved to be a problem because when I am around other people, I am socially anxious and uncomfortable basically all the time. Like most men, I was given a respectful distance, and I had to be mindful of the fact that my power could make me a threat to others. And so I deliberately faded into the background so as not to make anyone uncomfortable, when really, I eventually realized I wanted to be approachable and pretty. I want to be pretty and soft. Yeah, I do. So there's a lot of layers to privilege here. Like male privilege means you don't get bothered in public, that you're pretty safe moving through public spaces. And it also means if you're trying to be a responsible kind of man, that you're conscious of that power and how it can make others uncomfortable, how your attention can make people feel uncomfortable or preyed on. And that stuff was very triggering for me because I already deal with fear that I am mean and evil and creepy and scary and like fucked up. Like I already dealt with fears of that kind my whole life. Like I've always just felt like I'm creepy, I'm making people uncomfortable, I'm predatory, I'm evil. Like that's just like how I feel. So when you add on to that, like, oh, now I actually am potentially scarier to others, and I need to be mindful about that and wield that responsibly, which I think it is your responsibility to do if you're like a man and you're moving through the world that way. But it really fucked with me. It really made me even more like socially anxious in certain ways and made it really hard to engage with people because I never felt like talking to someone as a man was like welcome. Like I did not want to ever risk making someone uncomfortable, or someone thinking that I was like scary or pervy or creepy or weird. And so like I was like even more withdrawn, especially when I was like aspiring to be more like of a man or whatever. Here is another photo from Hyde Park that I took in the winter during my hand injury. It's a bunch of dried out tree branches shot from below, kind of all intersecting and gnarling together in like a clear blue winter sky. Reminds me of the tree made out of wood, funnily enough. Piss Hospital says, yeah, spending a long time as a man and a very tall one at that, those are extremely relatable feelings. It stressed me out to think people would be afraid of me. Yeah, it's an awful feeling. There was some discourse on Tumblr some very transmisogynistic discourse where it was like an expanding brain meme made by a trans guy, and it was like being perceived as a woman, being perceived as a man, being perceived as a threat. And so being perceived as a threat was presented as the most desirable thing. And a lot of trans women criticized that meme, saying like, if that's what you think, you've never been perceived as a threat. That is the most white birthday boy shit in the world. Like, ask any man of color how it feels to be perceived as a fucking threat and how dangerous that is. Ask any trans woman how that feels. Ask any mad person how it feels being perceived as a threat. It is not fun. It is imprisoning and scary, and it makes you like, I don't know how you don't internalize some of that and kind of feel uncomfortable with yourself when you've been treated that way. Like, it's so, yeah, I have these experiences now that echo trans feminine experiences so much. And like, I think we're in this together, even though, again, I have a lot of privileges in how I move in and out of this stuff that a lot of people don't have. Like, but I think we have to all speak on where this shit comes from. And like, there is this duality where if you are a member of a marginalized group, but you have a little bit of power, perceived power, physical strength, let's say, people hate you for it because you're not supposed to have power. You're the oppressed group. So your power is a threat. So we're going to keep you down and we're going to be violent toward you. And that is why society is so violent to, one of the reasons society is so violent to trans women, black men, and other groups they perceive as dangerous and violent and like a threat to them. Yeah, welcome to my twisted dark mind shit. Absolutely. I've been avoiding these truths for a while. It is always difficult to realize that you have dysphoria, that the constant low-grade pain you carry has a name and could be managed, rather than just being the base conditions of your life. Even if you've had gender dysphoria before, you can still spend years stuffing it down when it emerges in a new form, particularly if that new dysphoria complicates the narrative you already had about who you are. A few years into my slow transition, I stopped looking in the mirror or taking photographs of myself. People who have been around for a long time will remember that I used to love sharing selfies, fit pics, and awkward videos of myself lip syncing while wearing goofy Instagram filters. I didn't outgrow any of this. The person on the screen just stopped matching the person in my head. When I was living as a closeted, dysphoric woman, I never had dysphoria of that type. I could see how I looked quite clearly. I just hated much of it. But in recent years, as my body has masculinized, my bilateral dysphoria has morphed into something out of a cheesy 90s film about trans people. Imagination and reality disagree. In my mind's eye, I have a rounder face, a softer, fuller body, and a cuteness that I have always coveted. In the mirror, there is a grown guy with wide shoulders and a stern look who pays quarterly taxes and stands with his hands in the pockets of his khakis. I do not identify as a guy with a job. But on the bus, I look like one, nonetheless. I try making the most of what I've got, working the angles, softening my appearance with bangs, rounded haircuts, a choker on my neck. When I do have to take a photo of myself, I never stop moving and shoot without looking. One of the reasons that I've gotten so into wearing masks, puppy masks, fursuit heads, gas masks, and other fetish gear is because they allow me to hide the face I've gotten so uncomfortable with. Behind all of that leather and latex, all you can see is my eyes, not the skin around them that has changed so much. It also helps that with masks, I can control how I seem. I can be adorable. I can be playful. I can be blank and available to you. I can stop trying to be such a man and fall in love with myself. Lately, I've been trying to practice that outside of the fantasy space, too. Here's a photo of me with an S10 vintage British military gas mask. Shout out to Mod of the Piscord, Callisto, for turning me on to S10 gas masks. It thinks that this is a more masculine type of gas mask. I think with the big eyes, it's more like, I don't know, it's just bug-like. I don't know, I like it. I like how it looks, and it is a little bit Psycho Mantis from Metal Gear Solid, which I really like. I need to get myself a straight jacket so I can fully work that shit. Very rad as hell. So yeah, if you are ever in the market for a gas mask, might I recommend the humble S10 over some of the, but there's lots of cool models. But yeah, so it's a picture of me wearing that. Night Owl says, with regard to being perceived as a threat, it's literally why masking can be life-saving in autistic mask people of color. Yes, absolutely. Masking is a tool. Masking is not inherently evil. It is unfortunately a necessary thing for a lot of people of color, including to the degree where it's very exhausting for them and doesn't allow them freedom in themselves and their bodies. But like, if it's that or having the cops called on you for behaving erratically, quote unquote, and getting shot, like, yeah, you're going to mask. Like, it's a thing. Like, we can't talk about like full masking for all in all situations as if that's a realistic goal. It's not for anyone, but especially not when you are disempowered. The less power you have, the more you have to mask across the board. That's like a huge factor in these things. The first time that I detransitioned, I was attempting to erase the past. I felt that all the changes I'd made to my body and identity had alienated my straight male partner away and my... Oh, this is a typo, my bad. I felt that all the changes I'd made to my body and identity had alienated my straight male partner and my conservative family. And part of me longed to step back behind the veil of not knowing about all of this esoteric gender shit that made me such a strange bummer to be around in mainstream cishet spaces. I tried erasing all signs of what I had done to myself, using my 25-year-old past image as the standard against which to judge the person I now was. The disgust I felt at the uncategorizable freak before me in the mirror was overwhelming. In time, my efforts collapsed under the weight of my self-hatred, and I gave up trying to walk backward, instead placing all my energies into becoming adequate as a man. By external standards, I have succeeded. Everyone accepts me as a dude now without question, but it's required I bury all my emotions, playful spirit, flouncy gestures, transparent physical weaknesses, and all the complicating details that don't make the story cohere. If I'm to be a freak, then let's really be a freak, with proud stubble on the chin and a smooth-shaven belly, a baritone voice that whispers gently like Sufjan, a face soft but striking like Stephanie Germanata, except not a Zionist, a sway to the hips and a flat plane of chest, never happy but always fanciful, unlike any respectable 37-year-old is meant to be, a delusional loser, a perpetual child, a kid born with the creases of jadedness on its face, a thing that has lived a dozen lives and made a million mistakes, only a few of them involving its gender. I am transitioning again into a weird, wild it-its rather than the palatable but ignored they-them, or the respected but repressed he-him. I stopped taking testosterone over a month ago, and I'm loving how loose I'm feeling in my body and how round I'm looking in the face. I've been slathering some of that same atrophy-fighting estradiol cream all over my forehead and cheeks, giving my skin back its bounce. Highly recommend, too, if you want a little more collagen in the face, put that shit on your face. And it has not made me break out. So, estradiol on the face, just like fucking Dr. Will Powers or whatever, and the Blood Boy guy. They were onto something there. A great deal of my dysphoria has to do with being a professional man, with how limiting and at odds with myself that identity can be. Being a man made people respect me, but it also stuffed me into a bland, restrictive uniform that I found deeply depressing to have to inhabit. Especially professional male clothes. So depressing. Ugh. And so, in the past year or so, I've been on a course of steady deprofessionalization. I've been getting more tattoos in more visible places, writing more about sex and niche subjects that put off large audiences, cropping all my shirts, not that I wasn't doing that before, but even more. And I finally made some headway in growing out that damn buzz cut. I no longer care that I look a little unkempt at the faculty meeting. I am weary of the brand identity of Dr. Devin Price. That was the mask of a respectable professor, and I wore it to convince everyone I deserved to be listened to as a man rather than sidelined as a woman, no matter how much I was insisting at the time that I was non-binary. Now I barely care if people listen at all. Life is better with a little mystery. Treating my dysphoria has meant cultivating my femininity after years of trying to suppress it. I'm wearing flowy feminine pants, adorning myself in many layers of jewelry, and painting my nails in shades like moss and eggplant. I'm wrapping loudly patterned scarves around my scalp and feeling the edges of the fabric drip down my neck. I wear strappy platform sandals that emphasize my sway, and when I am really feeling myself, I press my hand against my smooth, flat chest and take in slow breaths of sensuality. These aren't affectations, though femininity is seen in a sexist society as more artificial than masculinity is. It's me reincorporating what I've always enjoyed before. I curse myself for throwing out so many adorable statement necklaces during the most cis-passing stage of my transition, when I was wearing polo shirts and half zips and feeling completely dead inside. There's an acid wash wiggle skirt I donated long ago that I still dream about, and I wish I could feel it still hugging my legs. I could have done all of these things as a man, you might say, and quite a few queer men do. But I feel freer now that I've stopped clutching to manhood. I was a failure at following the rules before I even started. And now I don't care what others think. Oh Lord, let me be misunderstood. Kill Bill fan, even all these years later, and after every reason to hate Quentin Tarantino, that shit still slaps. This is a picture of me recently at the Indiana Dunes with some friends. I'm just sitting in the sand. You can see the kind of curve of the dunes and the forest in the distance. I'm shirtless. You can see my top surgery scars. I'm wearing a little leather choker and black jean shorts. I have round, kind of like vintage Hollywood kind of style sunglasses on my face, and a little black bandana kind of holding my growing out hair back, and I'm smiling. There is the Progress Pride flag that also has the intersex symbol in it, whatever that's called. That's behind me, that our friends put into the sand, and a bunch of my friends' beach gear is strewn about me, and there's a few other beachgoers in the distance. Thank you. Yeah, it was a good photo. I have friends who are good at noticing a cinematic moment, which I appreciate. We got some questions in the chat about estradiol cream. Is it DIY or prescription only? You can get it as a prescription. Here's what I did. I went to my regular testosterone prescription refill meeting because I'm still with my doctor, because I'm still fulfilling that prescription. You better believe I'm still getting all my testosterone filled to the maximum dose possible so that I can redistribute that shit to people. And I said, I have atrophy. I want estrogen cream for the atrophy. So she wrote me a prescription for estradiol cream for atrophy, and I've just been filling that and putting it on my face as well. So you can get it by asking for it for atrophy if you are trans mask or like menopausal as well. Lots of cis women in menopause get it. And you can DIY it as well if you prefer. So, unknown NB user says, can't wait to wear dresses after radical reduction. Oh my God. Yes. I have this dress that I got it before I was even trans. It has this really deep V-neck. Like, it goes past my surgery scars. I never could wear that shit when I had triple Ds. Like, it was absurd, but I just loved it. I called it my space hoe dress. It's kind of like futuristic and like simple and like gray. And now I can wear it with like the top surgery scars showing, and it's like, oh, it's so sexy. I love it so much. It fucking hits. Yeah. Yeah, and trans feminizing HRT, so estradiol stuff, is usually easier to get online than testosterone. So you can definitely, if you go to like DIYHRT.cafe, you can find a number of retailers that'll sell you estradiol cream if you want it in that way. Many of the feelings I'm now having about testosterone are ones I share with trans women and trans feminine people, as well as detransitioned trans men, intersex people, and non-binary people of all stripes. I should not be ashamed of having these feelings or speaking of them. The more stories there are of gender expansiveness, the less broken we'll all feel. I am not betraying any queer liberatory movement by exercising body autonomy. It only allows others to make their own distinct choice. By speaking of my complex feelings, I am not making hormones less accessible to anyone. I am increasing the net amount of available information on its possible effects and what various courses of transition can look like. And my complex feelings about testosterone are not the opposite of transgender feelings. They are trans feelings. That I came to dread the changes testosterone were writing onto my face and body unites me with so many of my trans sisters and intersex and non-binary siblings who have felt exactly the same ways I do. And the changes I am now undergoing to correct those feelings are the ones they undergo too. It's not unusual for a trans person to dislike or even regret some of the decisions that they have made along their journey. When we deny that possibility, we make it easier for our opponents to spread the lie that the most shameful thing a person can do is transition and be wrong. It's far worse to just not ever get to transition. If we do not proudly claim the stories of the complexly transitioned, the non-binary, and the detransitioned as a part of us, then they will be claimed by transphobes, who will continue, as they already are, to vampirize their pain and manufacture horror at their bodies, leading hordes of concerned parents and corrective therapists to our doors. Respectfully, I do not choose death before detransition. I'd much rather go on with living, with all of my history growing in me. I used to think it was somehow a betrayal of my transness to not want to lose my hairline, to want my big-looking eyes back, to like my hips wide, to enjoy aspects of inhabiting a stereotypically feminine social role. But when I hear these same desires expressed by trans women, trans femmes, and all manner of effeminate or faggotized people, I am comforted and feel less alone. I want to be in community with them and among them. And as my appearance changes, I will never disavow what similarities we share. This is a piece from Angela Badalamenti on Substack, also known as friend of the show, Trans Peaks. And this piece is Trans Misogyny Exempt is not who you are, but what you do. And her argument in this piece is, as long as you don't disavow being mistaken for a trans woman, then you could arguably fall under the trans misogyny affected umbrella. But where it becomes a problem is when people are claiming trans feminine struggles and aesthetics and community like identifiers and like taking all the sauce of trans femininity, but immediately denying that they are trans feminine in order to save their own skins the second they actually face any actual trans misogyny. So she makes this argument that that Lady Gaga is trans misogyny affected because when she was accused of being a trans woman, she never said, "Oh no, I'm not. She said, "So what if I am?" So it's kind of a, it's a jokey example, but it's an illustration that like who you are in community with and how you show that community loyalty and solidarity matters more than like technically what your identity is, or like, oh, somebody thought I was a trans woman once. Does that mean I count as trans misogyny affected? Blah, blah, blah. All that like rules lawyering shit that people do. And it's like, no, are you really like standing with trans women? If somebody thinks you're a trans woman in the bathroom, do you immediately go to, oh, don't be afraid of me, I have a vagina? Because if you're doing that shit, you're dealing in trans misogyny. And a lot of trans masks fucking do it all the time. Like everybody loves to be mistaken for a trans woman until they're actually mistaken for a trans woman. And her argument is, well, if you actually will just let people mistake you for a trans woman and you're not trying to use a trans misogynistic argument to protect yourself, then you're part of the club. Then you're part of the family. But you have to act like you're a part of the family. So it's a really great piece. Strongly recommend checking out all her stuff. She's really wicked smart and also a great meme maker. In other ways, my transition remains resolutely trans-mask. I do not regret taking testosterone. I was truly miserable attempting to be a cis girl, and taking testosterone for years has left me with a variety of long-lasting changes that make me now feel at ease in my estrogenizing body. For however long I go in that direction, like I might hit a wall and be like, this is too much, and then go on T again. Who the fuck knows? I adore my lower voice, my bigger dick. Though I pushed my muscle development a bit too far and hit the limitations of my body earlier this year when I injured myself, I do enjoy being significantly stronger. I like that tea made my ass fatter, thanks to the muscle gains, and my pussy wetter, for reasons science does not yet understand. Atrophy aside, like I never had the dryness thing. The opposite. Go figure. Because it is a steroid, testosterone has eradicated every single one of my pollen and pet allergies, making it possible for me to become a cat parent. My cat Loki mews at me in a way that sounds distinctly like mama, and I'm happy to be that to her too. Thanks to muscle growth, top surgery, and increased confidence, I stand taller. I'm even one of those rare weirdos who enjoys shaving my face. So far. I've only started actually using shaving cream in the last several months, and it really helps. We love a we love a ass monarch. Yes, absolutely. I am so glad that I've been able to navigate queer male cruising and dating spaces, and thankful for all the lessons being a gay man has taught me. I'm satisfied that when I walk down the street in a dress and a ton of chunky bracelets, that people think I'm a faggy guy. All things considered, that's the closest category recognizable to mainstream society. But when wearing a scarf or a dress makes somebody ma'am me, which has started happening recently, the word slides across my body like satin. Basically, I'm in the place where it's like, I don't give a fuck anymore. Like, I'm not going to read into these things or, like, try to control what language people use. Like, whatever. Like, faggy guy is still one of the closest categories to accurate for people, even though, like, thing is way better. Like, non-human thing is even better. But, like, what? Who cares? Like, oh, who cares? Oh, it's kind of a relief to not give a shit anymore. You know what I mean? I am very glad I transitioned in all the ways I did, and I'm elated to be transitioning again. Of course, no matter what choices you make about your body, the transitioning never stops. Because we keep aging, effects accumulate over time, our bodies change, and so on and so forth. Before I came out, I used to think that transitioning would be simple, like throwing off some heavy blanket of repression. But once I tried it, I learned the blanket was also me. I would never be a person who had not wanted to die when I was younger, whose body hadn't been sexualized by its father, who hadn't starved itself until it grew cold and its period stopped, who could only get off by laying back and drifting distantly away in its mind while others used it for gratification. There was no being reborn as some new being. For me, there was only progressing forward, with all of the damage and lessons alike. This is a synthesis of all that came before. All of the people that I've been are there, wound around one another. Out-teenaged asexual, closeted cisgender woman, questioning bisexual, unseen NB, faggy boy, rigid man, dissociated repressive, feral thing, thesis, antithesis, resolution of the chord. I am growing softer, working out less vigorously, eating more, crying lots, though on every hormone configuration I have cried often, stretching my body gently, getting all furry from my toes to the crown of my head, expanding outward, sleeping in late, smiling at people once in a while, grinning at myself a whole lot more recently, taking photos of me and of nature, unlocking my jaw, ornamenting myself in things that shine, taking a long time to get ready, moving languidly, letting loose long exhales, not holding gestures in, letting myself want to be pretty, maybe even being that for a few more years, touching myself, wanting to touch. Never knowing what I am, never identifying as anything, just growing, mutating, like those shimmering alien-infected fauna in Annihilation. A mutant thing, uncategorizable, a captured moment of being alive. And the closing photo of this piece is some more nature imagery. This is a very foggy day on the lakeshore path, where the gravel curves against the fenced-in golf course by the Montrose Harbor. And you can see overgrowth covering all of the fences, and there are trees in the distance partially shrouded in fog, and there's also some kind of crane in the back, also partially obstructed by fog from where they're repairing the bridge over there. So this reminded me a little bit of Annihilation because it has overgrowth that almost suggests abandonment in this small frame of reference, but then you also have like nature and also like industrial imagery, and then of course the fog has a kind of creepy liminal quality to it. Anybody who's like not in the binary loves the word liminal, right? Every trans person loves the word liminal. So had to give that to him. And then here's links to related pieces if you are interested in this stuff and you want to learn more about my thoughts on it if 2 hours wasn't enough. Bilateral dysphoria is a piece where I talk specifically about the experience of being dysphoric about being cis feminine and dysphoric about being too masculine. And this includes a link to the Tree Made Out of Wood piece from Jess as well. And that one is on medium.com. Tree Made Out of Wood. I'll put that in the video link notes. I've also linked to a piece called The Beautiful Failure of Being a Man. This one, huge credit to Trans Peaks for informing a lot of the writing here. It's all about how manhood is a state of failing to be a man. And so if you don't feel like a man, if you hate the standards of being a man, congratulations. That's what most men experience, because manhood is this construction of power that is, it rewards you insofar as you suppress yourself. Oh, hello, Megan. Welcome. Missed the start of this, but I'm glad I made it for this part of the stream. Oh, thanks for being here. Yes, we love the liminal. Yeah. I'm glad you're here. Yeah, this shit is there's layers to this shit. Fuzzy Wuzzy says the picture looks like something out of Castle in the Sky. Yeah, it's very eco-like, right? Which I always love. You're playing hooky. Yay. Good. You should. Yeah. I always love to see that for you, not working as much. So good. What's on the docket for you today? Are you gaming or going anywhere, doing anything fun? Hope you're enjoying your hooky. And the last piece that I linked to here is kind of a review, reflection on I Saw the TV Glow, called Am I Trans for the Right Reasons? Does It Matter? And just how I Saw the TV Glow just really hit me in this way of like, there's this narrative of like dying and being reborn that is a big part of a lot of people's transition narratives. And it just has never quite connected with me personally, just because it's like, I'm still dead, baby. Like, I am in the dirt. Like, I am not reborn. Like, I am just as fucked up as I was before. You know what I mean? Like, I just got a different hat on. And I like the hat, but I'm still me. This shit still sucks it still sucks in here. And like the complexity of choosing to transition and trying to find a way to understand oneself. And like, again, much love to the people who do just like blaze out of their transition like a phoenix, completely reborn, confident, soaring ahead. Like, that's awesome. Like, I wish it had felt that way for me, but also it makes sense that me being me never felt that way. Just chilling today, hanging with the cats right now. Oh boy. My cat, Loki, woke me up at 6:43 a.m. She had dragged her little mouse on a string toy into the bed, and she was like, meow, and she was like putting her gently on my hand, putting her little hand on my face, waking me up. And so then I had to play with her for a little while at fucking 6:43 a.m. And then she was attacking me while I was working out, so then I had to wrestle her. I'm looking for the transition option where I have no physical body. That's fucking right. I know it. I just want to be, like, I want to be a little fairy sprite. I want to be an anamorph shapeshifter. Yeah, I think those are the things I want, actually, these days. Like, I've gotten into a state of peace with this having a body thing, because I've learned I have to listen to it and take care of it and feed it and stretch it and get it away from the computer and do all those things. I'm trying to enjoy having a body now. And I'm like in enough of a place like dysphoria wise where I can like enjoy having a body now. Like this shit, like, ooh, this zone, love this. But non-human options, please. My God, that's what I need. Like, and shapeshifter options. I just want to be an anamorph. Just let me be a Andalite from the Animorphs. A little alien horse person with like a scythe for a tail that I can turn into any creature that I want. And also, yeah, I just want to be like a little fairy that can, I love like being hiding in like a little hole. So I just want to be like able to hide in like a knot in wood and just watch people. Like, so much of it is about like, for me, this like social interaction piece of like, I want to be able to watch people from like a little hidey hole in like a knot in a tree of wood and like come down and like whisper things in their ear, but I don't want to have to like stand there and like have a conversation at a cash register. You know what I mean? Like this is human life under capitalism sucks. I want to just be a sprite and I want to fly away, you know. Yes, Andalite shout out. Yes, I love Animorphs here. Did we all want to be cats as kids? I wanted to be a bat. Uh, so clock that T. But yeah, we all wanted to be a creature. Question: did you feel that things like autism affect your gender identity? Oh yeah, oh yeah. Like I think it's impossible to separate those things. Like, there's only one me, right? There's not an autistic me and a trans me. There's only one me. So there's only, you know, you can't separate it from me. Especially when you take into account like the alexithymia piece. Like, where's that link? Here's a piece I've written about being alexithymic. A lot of autistic people detach from our own bodies because of trauma, and so we can't tell what we're feeling. And so that absolutely influences gender dysphoria. Like, does some of my dysphoria relate to inhabiting a body feeling unnatural to me as an autistic person? Perhaps. Megan says there are home videos of me as a cat. Oh my god. Oh, did you have like a cat sona? Like a pattern, or like what style of cat you were? Meowing is a genuine response sometimes. Me and my cat will like be on the floor just meowing at each other. And it feels good. And my cat like recognizes me as creaturely in a way. Just a second. I'm going to tell my colleague I'm going to be late to my meeting because time theft. Time theft, baby. Oh my God, he's already in the meeting room early. Running a little late from my last meeting. Be there soon. That's on time theft. Yeah. We'll wind down in a couple minutes here, but I just want to respond to the chat and stuff. Yeah, no, my cat treats me more like an animal than she treats other people. Like, she really likes when I'm on the floor, and she will yell at me when I'm sitting on the couch and then calm down when I'm sitting on the floor with her. And like, or we're just loafing in different corners of the room. Like, that feels good to her. It's affirming to her. And like, yeah, we just meow back and forth to each other. It rules. Remember in the book when Axe, the Andalite, drank Coke through his foot while driving a car through a desert? Andalite Chronicles was wild. Oh my god. I love Axe. I love him and his cinnamon buns fixation. I forgot that they drink through their feet. I know they didn't, they don't have mouths. I forgot about them not fucking drinking through their feet. I wish I could telepathy, communicate. I wish I could the bond that they have with the animals is they're absorbing their DNA, and that it's very plural when they take on an animal form, and they have the psychology of the animal and the animal's instincts like in their own brain. It's so cool. It's so plural. God, those books rule. God damn. K.A. Applegate, and she has a trans daughter who she's very affirming of. So amazing. I had a little costume I would wear that I think was vaguely tuxedo. Oh my god, Megan, you got to send me that picture someday if you have it. I would love to see that. Like, little cat costume. Oh, did you have ears? Did you have a tail? I would do a lot of like galloping around the neighborhood pretending to be a horse or a deer, bat flying around like a bat was huge. Pokemons, lots of being a Pokemons. Oh my god, little gloves, yes. Little paws. Tough Tooth says, I connect most to the Steven Universe alien rock concept these days. Yeah, that's a cool one. That it's like a projection, but the rock is the actual self. And like it's like this hard, eternal thing that can like shatter, or you can dwell inside of it. Like the fact that you can like go inside of yourself and that's you is so fucking fun and interesting. Like, I love that. I love that shit. It's very relatable. Any parting thoughts on and questions on non-binary dysphoria, being an object or creature, transition, detransition, retransition, any of that fun stuff. Gender affirming healthcare. There's a lot of great stuff in the comments on the piece. I highly encourage reading the piece and the comments. Definitely had a horse girl phase, but wanted to be the horse. Yes, I was never a horse girl wanting to have a horse. I wanted to be the horse. You get me. Half Mass B says, I really appreciated your last piece. I was struggling with the feeling like I was getting lapped. I think like you described by other trans women, but also really enjoy seeing myself androgynously. So thank you. Well, thank you. I'm really glad you related, and that it was helpful. Because sometimes I have thought, like, am I fucking up here? Like, why am I not as confident going for that dramatic of a change as other people? But it's because I didn't want to go there. Like, I've seen some trans men who their transition is beautiful. They're like these hunky guys. I don't actually want to be a hunky guy. Like, I just want to be me, you know? I just want, and it's not even about being as this choice. I just, it's about doing. What do I want to do? How do I want to live? Like, what feels good? Hello, Blair. Honor the you of the moment. Yes. That's the idea. And I think that stuff is something we need to account for when we talk about gender transition. That, like, you're going to continue to change as a person over time. You really can't know what you're going to want in the future. And that's why you should do what you want to do now. If you want to start hormones, you should fucking start hormones. It rules. It's great. I'm very glad I did it. It felt amazing starting it. The first couple of years on it, owned. I liked everything about it, especially when I was on like low dose, waffly NB shit. But the thing that sucked was the societal projections. People just weren't taking me seriously as anything other than a cis woman. And I still had like chest dysphoria out the ass. And so I needed to do more. So I hit the gas on that shit for a while, and now we're doing something different. Maybe I'm just addicted to change, too. Like, I like watching things change in a different direction now. Thank you for writing and for making space for gender nonconforming, non-binary people. We're here and we're queer, etc., etc. Yes. As someone who has only socially transitioned because I am NB and fear not recognizing myself, hearing stories of other NBs in constant transition is so comforting. Yeah, and that's a legitimate thing. Like, I do think, try it. Like, I think you should try it. If you're curious about it, you should try it. Like, gel goes really slow. Gel effects go really slowly, aside from things like voice changes and bottom growth, which you'll still probably get within a month or two. But, like, beyond that, like, it's pretty subtle shit for a while, and it's fun to try, and you can stop, And if that's not something you want, then, surgery, changing how you present, changing the spaces that you move through, changing, like, gender is what we do. Identity is what we do. So if you're not happy with where you're at, change who you're around, change what you're doing, change what you allow yourself to do, change your presentation. Presentation is just one piece of it, Try gel. Gel is amazing. T-gel is really great. It's very easy. On-ramp. It's crazy how bodies can just keep changing. Yes. Yeah. Everything keeps moving and sinking and shifting and like, I'm like stronger and faster than I've ever been in my life, because when I was younger, I was too like dysphoric to like do much in my body. And I was also really weak and uncoordinated because of the autism. And like testosterone made me stronger. So like now I can like do push-ups and like install an AC unit and like all this cool shit. Like it's fun for what I can do, not just like aesthetics or whatever. Top surgery will always be the best thing I ever did for my body. Yeah, same. And I love getting surged up. Surgery's fucking fun. I loved getting my wisdom teeth out. I never would have thought I would like it, but like it's incredible. Yeah, Waluigi Bowser, access to hormones will depend on your insurance. If you're on Medicaid in a state like Illinois, transition-related care is provided, is covered. So it is you pay in either money or you pay in time, right? So if you are getting care through Medicaid, for example, you probably will have to find it's harder work to find a doctor who accepts Medicaid, and usually they'll have a longer wait list. Like, this is a very like unfair capitalist world we live in, absolutely. But like, don't write off options as not available to you. Also, there are here, because I believe you mentioned being in Illinois, Waluigi Bowser, there are clinics like Howard Brown Health, which has its flaws, it has its criticisms, but what it does have is grants that cover gender affirming care. So if you can't afford gender affirming care, they will help cover it. Blair in the chat is a recipient of that. So you can get, just even if you can like travel up to Chicago for like a day for an appointment, that's what Blair does. Blair doesn't live here anymore, and Blair still gets hormones from here. You can get your hormone prescription, majority of that care covered through Howard Brown, either if you're on Medicaid or if you just don't have like any income or health insurance. My health insurance does not cover my hormones, and so Howard Brown pays for my hormones. So yes, money opens up access to a lot more options of surgeons. It makes it easier to buy things online, but depending on where you live, if you live in a country where gender affirming care is provided, like say Germany, you can get it. And then in many pockets of the U.S., including Illinois, you can get it. So don't write it off if you're interested. It's work, but if it's something that you want, you can do. Oh, if you're in the suburbs, then that's totally doable. Then you would just need help getting into the city, taking a train or getting a ride from friends or family into Howard Brown for an appointment, and you could pick up your prescription in Howard Brown's clinic pharmacy. They help cover it to make it more affordable. So for me, it's like a 3-month prescription is like $30. And that's because I'm on gel. If I was doing shots, it would be cheaper. So yeah, if you're interested, you can book an appointment at Howard Brown and pay very, very little if you're in a state of financial need to get gender affirming care and to get input on, here's what I kind of want, here's what I'm feeling. Like, it's informed consent. So if you know what you want, you can ask for it, or they can talk through the options with you based on how you're feeling and what you want. And you can bring like a healthcare advocate with you as well too, a friend or family member if you like. I have not read The Uglies, actually. I've heard of them, but I have not read them. Top surgery cost me very little and was covered. Mine was 10,000 smackaroonies because I work for a Jesuit employer, baby. Fuck my life. But obviously, privileged to be able to pay for it. Constant parties, like constant surgery, like for parties and stuff. Like that musical we watched. Not Repo. Yeah, Repo, the genetic opera. Oh, I love that shit. I'm so glad I could get a histo when I had fibroids. My body didn't want the uterus. Yeah. Hell yes. Okay, I need to not leave my coworker hanging. Let me find someone to raid, and I can send y'all going. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I wish I could have continued this conversation on longer. Really enjoyed talking about this stuff. Really enjoyed the response people have had from all across the gender spectrum to this conversation. I'm so thankful. This VOD will be on YouTube, at Dr. Devin Price on YouTube. Thank you, YouTuber viewers, for watching this. Please leave me a comment. Let me know, if you're liking these things. Feel free to join the Discord server to talk to these fine folks in the chat, and be part of the ongoing conversation. The Discord is a very fun, like, non-hierarchical, as much as possible, space where we're hanging out and talking about disability stuff and gender stuff. Oh, Spoonie's streaming. Okay, so we'll raid Spoonie. So Spoonie Cat is playing Silent Hill Theater Donathon Day 3, Silent Hill 3 UFO Ending. So Spoonie is a furry artist, streamer, game developer, friend of the show. They've been on the show a few times. Non-binary cat person. So we'll send y'all on over there to hang out with them in just a second here. But yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I want to get more into the groove of streaming again more often. I want to start a game soon. Maybe Sensua's Sacrifice or We the Revolution is another one I'm contemplating closely. So hopefully we'll be hanging out soon. But yeah, thank you everybody for being here. And with that, I'll send you all over to Spoony Cat. Bye.